My party arrived at Veronica and rested for one day. The next morning, I got up first and stood at the entrance of the castle as I informed the party of my plans. Lee Hyun-sun asked, "Surely you're not going alone?" "I won't be alone. I'm going with these two." I pointed to Han Soo-young and Oscar Ren. Then Lee Ji-hee wondered, "What are we going to do while Ajashi is gone?" "You and Hyun Sung-shi are in charge of guarding Veronica's walls. Have you checked the updated scenario?" "Is it to defend Veronica Castle until the end of the scenario period?" "Yes, that is your mission." "But..." "Do it." "I understand." I looked at Lee Hyun-sung. "There is Gong Pildu, but it will be hard to stop the disasters with Armed Fortress alone. I'm sorry to leave it to you, but..." "Don't worry, protecting a base is my specialty." I was relieved by his determined words, but I knew it wouldn't be that easy. It might seem like an easy task, but surviving this scenario was harder than going with me. "If you see the snake of the group, don't confront him head-on. Flee Veronica Castle if you have to. Can you promise me this?" "I promise." Their mission was to protect the castle until I returned. I gave orders to Lee Gil-young and Shin Yu-sung. "Secure as many insects and monsters as possible. Your mission is to buy time." Lee Gil-young and Shin Yu-sung nodded. "If you go to the North Forest, then there will be many unique monsters of this world. Go and tame these monsters." "Yes, Young. I understand, Ajashi." A large number of monsters would help bridge the gap with the disasters. In the process, the children's skills would also increase significantly. I left Veronica Castle. Han Soo-young saw the people watching us from behind and asked, "So where are we going?" "The Eastern Rocky Zone." The startled Oscar Ren told me, "The Japanese have already occupied that area." "I know." I stared straight at Oscar Ren. She had soft and curly silver hair. She had a clear face with sharp lines, like a cartoonist had painstakingly drawn it. It was the feeling of a face that gave off a warrior feeling, rather than just a beauty. I told her, "That's why I brought you." "Do you trust me?" "I don't trust you. I just want to get back the value of saving your life." "I see." It was easier to say this than to buy her favor with kindness. In fact, Oscar Ren looked worried about something. Perhaps when her troubles were over, she would tell me the information in earnest. We traveled over the plains towards an area filled with rock formations. The trip was estimated to take 2 days, but we could do it within 1 day if we moved fast. Han Soo-young asked, "What is the plan?" "Unlike us, Japan has an absolute throne. In other words, there is an absolute king among the first group who commands all of them." Han Soo-young pondered on my words. "Do you mean to catch the king?" Han Soo-young was really quick to understand. I nodded. Han Soo-young muttered, "Well, your idea is correct. There would be a profound effect on the entire group if the master of the absolute throne dies. Of course, killing the king won't stop them all. Still, it will allow us to hold on till the end of the scenario." Then you've been aiming for the boss since the beginning? I like your ambition." Then Oscar Ren interrupted. "Do you know who the king of Japan is now?" "Isn't he the sovereign of 8 heads?" The sovereign of 8 heads. It was abbreviated to just a snake. "How do you..." Oscar Ren was astonished. Her body shook. It was natural. She was part of the first group that knew what type of existence the sovereign of 8 heads was. For reference, the sovereign of 8 heads wasn't the nickname for the Japanese king, but the modifier of his sponsor. The king didn't have a nickname because there was no meaning in one. "You must have heard his modifier somewhere, but he isn't as easy as you think." "I'm aware of that. He is Yamada no Orochi." The sky darkened at my words, and there was a rumbling sound. Perhaps that guy had heard me speaking. It was a powerful force belonging to the constellations. "Orochi? Isn't that the name of a mythical monster in Japan?" "That's right. Now he is Japan's king." "Then why is he called by his sponsor's name? Doesn't he have a nickname?" "It is meaningless. That incarnation isn't the same anymore. During the 6 scenarios, he made a ridiculous contract with the sovereign of 8 heads and had his soul stolen." Oscar Ren's mouth gaped open when she heard my words. She was surprised that the incarnation of another country knew more about the circumstances than she did. "Then he will be in the Rocky Zone." Yes. However, we can't catch him right now. Preparations are necessary. We are going to meet someone else in the rock area. Meeting someone? Is it Yu Jung-hyuk? He's better than Yu Jung-hyuk. Is there a person better than him? It is possible. Who? A strong person from Peaceland. Han Soo-young frowned. From Peaceland? Are you joking right now? It was understandable. This information didn't appear in the first 100 chapters. Don't you know how weak the kids here are? Han Soo-young exclaimed without giving me a chance to answer. She always looked particularly agitated when she became angry. There isn't a third-rate swordsman here, let alone a swordmaster. The only magic these kids can use is to create fire on a stove. I know. This isn't a first-generation fantasy novel. It is like someone has maliciously gathered only weak people. No, I don't understand it. Why did the Dokkaebis make this world a stage? Is this an alternative idea to give coins? I could understand why Han Soo-young was so upset. This girl might be a plagiarist, but she was a popular fantasy writer. Relax. This world wasn't made by the Dokkaebis. What? I looked behind me. There was a woman looking down with a flushed face. It felt like a very new writer standing in front of an experienced writer. Asuka hesitated for a moment before bowing. I'm sorry. Han Soo-young seemed to realize something. Wait! Don't tell me! Asuka Ren slowly nodded. Peaceland is a world I created. Perhaps Asuka Ren shouldn't have revealed this. At first, Han Soo-young was so astonished that she couldn't believe it was real. Then after 5 minutes she murmured, well, my novel became a reality. Then another 5 minutes passed and she started scolding Asuka Ren. Why did you do that? Huh? Why? Answer me, writer. Why did you make a world like this? Asuka Ren ended up half crying. That there are so many mainstream worlds in Japan, so... you created this to resist the mainstream worlds. I thought that as a writer I shouldn't bring out the mass production story. Mass production? Maybe she said something she shouldn't have. Han Soo-young declared, your work can't even be mass-produced. Huh? Han Soo-young stared at Asuka Ren like she was pathetic and then told me, hey, Kim Doksha, is this it? I stayed a few days in Veronica, and in the world, the Earl speaks ill of the Duke. Besides, the knights are all like parasites and only know how to dither. Asuka Ren protested. Well, wait a minute. Shut up. We are suffering now because of you. I made it, but I wasn't the one who called you here. Look at this girl. The Dokkaebis brought it from you and made your world into reality. The manga must have been ruined. Let's throw all the ruined mangas into a world and kill them. You must have prayed with this thought and received a message like, I will listen to your wishes, right? It was the first time I had ever heard such creative reasoning. She truly was a writer. No, that isn't possible. Then what is it? I became curious when I heard this. There was no mention of why Asuka Ren's Peaceland was adopted as a scenario in Ways of Survival. Perhaps I could get a hint about the writers of Ways of Survival from this? That... Han Soo-young was pulling out a sword while Asuka Ren took one step back. I interrupted them. I'm really curious, but I'm afraid we can't hear it now. Huh? Run! We moved by a hair's breadth, and a sharp sword slashed at us where we had been standing. Asuka Ren desperately ran with a pale face. Han Soo-young asked, Shit, when did they follow us? They are good at stealth. How many are there? 4 people. They didn't underestimate us and tried to assassinate us. We had no chance in a head-on battle. Asuka Ren gasped for air and said, It seems to be the Wind Shadow Squadron. They are the subordinates of the Sovereign of 8 Heads. Those brats have weird names. This wasn't the timing for them to chase me. It seems that it was a mistake to mention Orochi's true name. As soon as we entered the rocky area, the range of our movements became better. It was due to Asuka Ren's guidance. Once again, the person who created the world was different. Nevertheless, the distance was narrowing as the Wind Shadow Squadron caught up to us. Han Soo-young spoke like she had made up her mind. I don't know. Kim Dokcha, go first. I'll buy some time. Is it okay? Don't you know me? I'm a master at dying. Then I'll believe you. I grabbed Asuka Ren and ran. Renshi, there's no time anymore. Quickly find him. I don't know what you're saying. The returning Kyrgios. Huh? I shouted while avoiding a flying sword. It seemed that Han Soo-young had missed some people. Tell me where Kyrgios is. I don't know who that is. I expected it to be like this. In Ways of Survival, it only mentioned that Kyrgios was here, and he never came out directly. I really don't know. I never created such a person. Nope, you know. He was the only powerhouse of Peaceland. There isn't a person like that in my manga. Besides, all the characters in my manga are weak. Then a sword thrust at us. I turned sharply and stopped. I didn't want to do this, but I had to touch her wound. Your Peaceland was terminated early in the 11th episode, and you didn't get a single volume published after that. How do you... I know that you wanted authentic fantasy in your heart. However, it didn't work out. Your manga, is it really authentic fantasy? 2 people from the Wind Shadow Squadron appeared in the smoke. I would be able to cope with them if I was my usual self, but now it's hard to stop even one. I brushed aside the katana, but my wrist was broken. I activated White Pure Star energy and shouted calmly, It was just once, but you became angry when you saw the reaction of readers and drew a person. What are you saying? He's a strong person, not fit for Peaceland. You felt guilty about pandering to the public by drawing such a person. That sense of guilt ruined your Peaceland. No, I never did that. Please take responsibility until the end, even if only one reader watches this world. It became more and more difficult for me to avoid the blades. The panicked Oscar Wren was completely frozen. 2 katanas fell towards my upper and lower half. Damn it, was I wrong? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And then a voice was heard. You're right. The next moment, the surrounding air changed. I felt my limbs become stiff from the cold. Then another voice was heard. Who are you? I didn't look back, but it was clearly a presence comparable to the constellations. Otherwise, my fourth wall wouldn't be shaking so much. I looked ahead and saw the Japanese people standing like stone statues. They couldn't even speak as pure white lightning fell towards them from the sky. The powerful disasters turned into ashes from the lightning. Once the clouds that caused the lightning disappeared, a small doll was floating. It was unbelievable. The powerful presence floating in the air was definitely a small person. He was properly hooked. I will ask again, who are you? It is nice to meet you, Kyrgios. Kyrgios Rodriguez of Peaceland. He was one of the strongest returnees in Ways of Survival.